Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever and however you're digesting Texas Rangers Daily. It's me, Chris, with a positive C, and we're going to get right to it because we have a loaded show here for you on Texas Rangers Daily. We're recording this after the Rangers get swept by the Houston Astros earlier tonight. So if you see me with tears in my eyes, I'm still thinking about the grief of maybe ending this season. But we're gonna have some fun later on when we talk about it's Throwback Thursday, so we're gonna talk about the 1996 Texas Rangers, a roster and a team that's near and dear to my heart. Bruce Bochy is another person who's really near and dear to my heart. I have some questions for myself that I'm going to answer about whether or not Bruce is going to be here next year. And speaking of next year, Brett Boone has been great this year. He's been a godsend and has really helped this team out. I'm going to bring up reasons why I think he should be back next year. But we're not going to talk about next year right now. We have to talk about this year. And we have to talk about the series with the Houston Astros that just happened. I had a lot of high hopes at the beginning of the series because we weren't going to have to face Framber Valdez, even though he's probably going to peg his catcher. We weren't going to have to face Hunter Brown, maybe one of the best pitchers, top five in all of Major League Baseball. He's really, really good. And we had Leiter, we had Merrill Kelly, and we had the Grom going for us. This should be a setup for at least 2 wins. We needed 2. I wanted 3. We got 0. We got the goose egg, and it started out bad. Game 1, Jack Leiter struggled early, got his his game together, got his head together. The mental side of everything kind of clicked, and it became the physical was good. And then all of a sudden, kind of fell apart again. He gave up 6 runs. Only 3 of them are earned though, but honestly, he had an error too. So who knows? Like the defense was not good for the Texas Rangers in this entire series, which isn't like them. They've been such a good defensive team all year. So game 2, again, we need Merrill Kelly was starting, and so in my mind, I'm thinking this guy is the guy we traded for. He got bandied about by saying he might be a third number 1 that we have with Eovaldi and the Grom. Well, we needed him. The Rangers needed him to count me on the wheeze. In fact, comment below, comment, like, and subscribe every time I say we. If we can get a subscriber for every time I say we, trust me, it's gonna be a good a good time here on Texas Rangers Daily. But like I was saying, Merrill Kelly needed to pitch like your number 1. He did not pitch like your number 1, and that's an issue. That's a problem. We gotta think about that going forward when it comes to Merrill Kelly's time here. Is he a true number 1? He might ask for a whole bunch of money like that. So we'll see. We'll see. And nothing really good happened in that game except a big time comeback. And that's what the Rangers have been doing all year in this. Not all year, I should say. At the beginning of the year, they were getting to the point to where they weren't having any comebacks, and Bruce Bochy talked about that. This at the end of this year, I should say, since the Little Rascals have been around, the comebacks have been here. The comebacks have been. The confidence is there that they can come back, and they did. They had a 4-run 8th inning. Jonah Heim with a 2-run bomb. Adolis Garcia with a pinch hit RBI. Josh Young with a double. Things were looking up, but it was all for naught. They fall 6-5, and then tonight, Smashing Pumpkins is what I want to do because the sweep felt like a finality. DeGrom, he got touched up early. He had 2 home runs in the game, 5 earned runs, 5 innings pitched. Just that's not a DeGrom start. He did get 6 Ks, but again, it's so unlike him, especially in a big time game to perform like this. So, back to back, Kelly, DeGrom, not giving us what we really needed from those caliber of pitchers. Garcia gave everything he could in the field for this. At the plate, not that great. 0 for 4 today. In game 1 when he played, it was another 0 for, and then the pitch hit last night. The pinch hit. So it's a 1 for 9 series against the Astros in Houston. That is not that is not Garcia when it's the history of Adolis Garcia against the Astros that really got him in the lineup, I think, because Michael Hellman didn't. He struggled too a little bit, so it wasn't like he was tearing the cover off the ball this series and was getting replaced by Garcia. Hellman had his time, did not come through exactly the way he had been, and so a lot of the little rascals they played well, but it wasn't the same type of spark that had been happening throughout the this little run that the Rangers have been on, and they fall. They get swept. You know, I don't blame Bruce Bochy for going with Garcia at all. You gotta go with what you think is going to work, and he made some great plays out in the field. So yeah, again, like I say, I'll never second guess the manager until I do. So I'm not doing it right there. But that feels like the end, guys. It feels like that is it. It is over. No more Texas Rangers, playoff hopes, and that also brings up some questions I have about whether or not this man, Bruce Bochy, will be here next year. So Bruce, he actually has the interview with the KNC Masterpiece, and he talked about development in a way where I thought it sounded like someone who wants to be around for a while, but then I have some more questions that came up in my head. Like, do I think Bruce is a manager who feels like he needs to make up for this year? He's got a lot of skins on the wall. Does he feel like he needs to make up for 2024 and 2025? And within that, the injuries, does that kind of give him a little bit of mental leash to come back and go, well, maybe if Seager and Garcia and Semien were all healthy at times, he can get that in his head that one more year, let's try to ride it out with the same core. And speaking of that core, does the core of the Texas Rangers, do they need a new voice? And what I mean by that is, and if you follow me on social media at all at _positive_C, you will see that I've talked about the core of the Texas Rangers being this 2022 core, because there's a lot of carryover from there, which wasn't very good with Chris Woodward, to now with Bruce Bochy, and the carryover also won the World Series. So there's tons of history that's saying that maybe this core isn't very cohesive and as good as they were in 2023 ever, and can be ever again. But is Bruce the steward that can take this ship in the right direction, or do they need a new voice with the same core? I'm not so sure, actually. I think that Bruce is the guy for this group because of how the lineup is built on these professional hitters doing professional at-bats, and I think that Brett Boone is actually helping refocus that in the way Bruce wants it. And so I think this coaching unit, is really good, and I wish they would stay together, and Bruce needs to be at the helm for that. But if he's not, who would be a good replacement? The Rangers have Skip Schumacher, which a lot of the professionals out there, the pro, analysts out there, if I'm not a pro, well, you know what? I could be a pro because pros get paid. And if you go ahead, like and subscribe and share, maybe it becomes a super pro move for me. So you know what? I can call myself a pro. Who knows? But yeah, the pros think Skip Schumacher should be a great manager. But is he going to wait? And are the Rangers willing to risk, him leaving and going somewhere different? Because he's got really no ties here. So if he wants to leave and go be a manager somewhere else that's open because Bruce is going to stay, will the Rangers move on from Bruce just for that? I'm not sure. I would love for Brett Boone to stick around and actually become a manager later on, following Bruce's footsteps. But, that's a lot of waiting for Brett, and maybe he has a better offer somewhere else. And I don't know anybody else right now. I'd have to really go scour to look for anybody else that is better than Bruce Bochy. So no, I don't think Bruce Bochy should go anywhere, but he might. He might. And you know why he might? The Giants. The Giants have Buster Posey. The Giants are a team where I could see him wanting to ride out into the sunset with his career like that. And yeah, it would be very fitting for Bruce to go back to San Francisco with Buster Posey running things, set up a culture there, and maybe win a World Series. Definitely take him to the playoffs. Speaking of playoffs, Playoffs. Playoffs. I got to get my Jim Mora impression in there. Playoffs. This team right here, the 1996. It's Throwback Thursday. The 1996 Texas Rangers were the very first Texas Rangers playoff team. They went 90-72 that year, and we're going to have some fun going over this team. In fact, we're going to start out with the opening day lineup. We got Hambone Daryl Hamilton leading off in center field. Pudge Rodriguez had a great year this year as your catcher in the 2-hole. Will Clark starting at first base, and this was a time where we didn't know. Scratch that, reverse it. Sorry, I'm looking at something else. My bad, guys. Will Clark, very good first baseman, would share this spot with Rusty Greer hitting third, would share this spot, and both did very well in that spot and in the other hole where they hit. Juan Gonzalez, your Igor, absolutely dominant season, MVP season. And he actually missed all of May, basically, with a torn quad. I totally forgot about that. He still ended up having a great year. Mickey Tettleton was your DH for most of the year. Iconic batting stance, of course. Rusty Greer, of course, would flip-flop in this position with Will Clark. He was your left fielder. This was weird. I totally didn't even realize this happened. Craig Worthington was your opening day starter at third base because Dean Palmer had hurt himself, had missed all the 1995 season basically, was still hurt the first 2 games, and then came back and had a tremendous year. And then Kevin Elster, your ninth hole hitter, spent 145 games in the ninth hole. And he didn't do all of this damage in the 9 hole, but almost all of it. 24 home runs, 99 RBIs. If you're wondering about the pitching was bad. I'm not going to go over all the pitchers except for Ken Hill. Ken Hill was actually number 6 in the Cy Young voting that year, so that was pretty awesome. And Kevin Gross. Go look up Kevin Gross's hair, and he had the worst hair in Major League Baseball. The rest of the pitchers, not really worth talking about. How did they do it? How did they get to 90 and 72? Well, the first 7 games they won. They won their first 7 games. They went 16-10 in April, and then even had a hotter May, going 18-9. And they kind of steadied out throughout the rest of the year, but still had a fantastic start. And that's the way that a lot of teams will do it. They'll start out real hot and maybe like plateau during the end and middle of the year. August was fairly okay, and they had a little bit of a September swoon, but still made it through. Juan Gonzalez, they had an MVP that year. Juan Gonzalez, 47 home runs, 144 RBIs, 3.8 at-bats per RBI. So that means like every game he was driving in a run, basically. It was tremendous season. He was hitting 321 with runners in score position. Again, just a mammoth season for Juan Gonzalez. Dean Palmer, Rusty Greer, Pudge Rodriguez all had great seasons. Dino with 38 home runs, 107 RBIs. Just tremendous offense throughout the whole year. And then the bench players were actually really good too, because Warren Newson and Damon Buford both played around 90 games and came through a lot of times in the clutch. And that's how they got to 90 wins. And they got to the playoffs against the Yankees. And how it ended was really sad. It was really sad, especially because I actually was able to go to the very, very first Texas Rangers playoff game at the ballpark in Arlington, and it was a lot of fun. I think that was the only game that was even a lot of fun at all, because they lost 3-1 to the Yanks, the eventual World Series champion Yankees, the eventual, dynasty Yankees. Juan, Pudge, Kevin Elster, they tried to carry the team. It didn't work out because Rusty Greer, Mickey Tettleton, and Will Clark, abysmal series. And when those guys needed to carry their weight in that series because of how stacked the Yankees were and just how they all year they had done so well, and that lineup was such a murderer's row to try to get through, and it fell apart because you're only having three guys that are really producing at all, and that can't work, especially going against that Yankee staff at the time too. So yeah, just a big letdown from players that you weren't expecting the letdown to happen. That's how it ended. But it did begin a really, really cool run of 3 out of 4 AL West champions chips, and it's just I fell in love with the Texas Rangers, and I fell in love with sports because of this team and how they really just the joy that this moment right here will go live on in Texas Rangers history. And so yeah, the joy of the Texas Rangers 1996 season flows through me, and it gives me hope for the future of this team because this guy right here. Brett Boone, not Jake Burger, even though Jake Burger, okay, yes. But Brett Boone gives me hope for the future. And when he first got hired, I was a little skeptical because I'd only heard him as a podcaster. I'm a podcaster now, so I guess I can't really, judge too much. But Brett Boone, when he got hired, and after, since May 5th, the team went 62-56, so they actually played definitely better. They had a 708 OPS, and compare that to a 642 OPS from before he was there. The team slugged more. The team had better at bats. That's actually the biggest thing. Our last, the Boone effect. I think the at bats were so much better. They were more team oriented. Even when people were pressing, you could tell that the rest of the lineup wouldn't, Evan Carter kind of pressed, but the rest of the lineup wasn't. And then when Josh Young would press, the rest of the lineup wouldn't. And so there was a team concept, I think, in a lot of the strategy and the approaches versus trying to hit to the numbers. And that's I think what Brett Boone has done very well is understand what the metrics are telling you, but being able to explain it in a way that actually, is kind of old school baseball. And there needs to be so much more of a blend with that. And I think he is the type of guy who can get that message across really, 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 I'm hunting rabbits right now, but really, really well. He can get that message across, and I think that hearing him talk about hitting, is just so eye-opening a lot, and it's not so technical as it is mental thought process-wise. And I think that's a lot of hitting that people kind of don't pay attention to now because the numbers are so important, and they don't, think about the approach and concept of an at-bat versus, what this percentage of thing is going to, I don't necessarily think that metrics and iPad use, like he says, to get off the iPad, I don't think it's a problem, but I do think that the way that he's been showing especially the Little Rascals, so that's another reason why, and this is the last reason why I think Brett Boone should stick around. The Little Rascals played so well. These young players that were being developed by Brett Boone, because he's the hitting coach now. He's a major league hitting coach. So when they're getting here, they're listening to his plans, listening to his strategies and to his concepts, and they succeeded, and the whole team succeeded. So I think Brett Boone needs to be around and be a cornerstone to what the Rangers are doing. But don't be surprised if he's around next year, if that's the last season he's here, because some other team is going to scoop him up to be their manager. It's a sad, sad time because it just feels like the end of the playoff hopes for the Texas Rangers. Hopefully, they prove us wrong and they come out of the Marlins series and the Twins series ready to play Cleveland and battle out for maybe the last wild card spot. We will find out more later on in this week. Friday's show, we'll have a fun Friday. We'll try to have some fun and make sure we'll have a positive spin on Friday. So that's, and yes, I'm going to jot this down right now. We'll have a positive spin for a Friday show to kind of give us some smiles because the Texas Rangers got swept by the Houston Astros and may have been swept out of the playoffs. Who knows? I am Chris, for now, with a positive C. This is Texas Rangers Daily, brought to you by the good people at FanArch. If you like the way we do things around here, you can like, comment, and subscribe. And you can comment if you know what band I was making fun of right there. All right? The counting numbers might show that some of you might know that band. Monowea, stay gold, Pony Boy. We'll see you later.